Pandronian starship Celestial Harmony drifted helplessly in the void, its hull breached and life support failing. Inside, Xanth, a renowned Pandronian scientist, huddled with 3 colleagues in a sealed compartment. Their alien eyes, multifaceted and iridescent, darted anxiously as they awaited rescue. Little did Xanth know that her salvation would come from an unexpected source, a human whose actions would ignite an interstellar incident and change her life forever. Andrew Gordon, a human engineer stationed on a nearby deep space outpost, intercepted the Celestial Harmony's distress signal. The outpost, a covert human observation post in Pandronian space, wasn't supposed to exist. Andrew's superiors ordered radio silence, but he couldn't stand by while sentient beings perished. Against direct orders, he prepped his small craft for a solo rescue mission. As Andrew piloted through the treacherous debris field surrounding the Celestial Harmony, his heart raced. The asteroid collision had left the Pandronian vessel in pieces, and time was running out. He docked with practiced precision and donned his advanced exosuit designed for the harshest environments. The ship's corridors were a maze of twisted metal and sparking wires. Andrew's suit sensors picked up faint life signs behind a sealed bulkhead. He activated his plasma cutter, knowing that breaching the compartment would expose him to the vacuum of space. The metal glowed red, then white, as he cut through. With a hiss, the bulkhead gave way. The sudden decompression threatened to suck Andrew into space, but he anchored himself with magnetic boots. He reached for the nearest Pandronian, Xanth, and pulled her to safety. The other 3 Pandronians, unable to resist the vacuum, were torn from the compartment before Andrew could react. Xanth clung to Andrew as they made their way back to his craft. His exosuit, damaged during the rescue, began to leak oxygen. By the time they reached safety, Andrew's vision blurred, and he collapsed from oxygen deprivation. Xanth, an expert in xenobiology, realized the human's physiology was failing. She pushed aside her shock and grief, focusing on saving her rescuer. Using her knowledge of Pandronian medical techniques, she worked to stabilize Andrew's condition, adapting her methods to his alien biology. As Andrew regained consciousness, his eyes met Xanth's. In that moment, something profound passed between them, a connection that transcended species. Neither could have predicted the consequences of their chance encounter. Meanwhile, light years away, the Pandronian government received word of the incident. They demanded an immediate explanation for the humans' unauthorized intervention in their affairs. The Deep Space Outpost Command faced a diplomatic crisis. How could they justify Andrew's actions without revealing their covert presence in Pandronian space? As Andrew and Xanth recovered, unaware of the political storm brewing, they began to bridge the gap between their species. Their growing bond would soon be tested by forces beyond their control. The rescue that saved Xanth's life had set in motion events that would challenge long-held prejudices and spark a conflict threatening to engulf both humanity and the Pandronians. In the vastness of space, a single act of heroism had lit the fuse of interstellar tension. And at the center of it all, an unlikely pair, a human engineer and a Pandronian scientist, stood on the precipice of a journey that would reshape the future of their civilizations. The journey back to the human deep space outpost was tense, with Andrew drifting in and out of consciousness as Xanth monitored his vital signs. As they approached the station, hidden within an asteroid field, Xanth marveled at the ingenuity of human engineering that had kept this outpost concealed from Pandronian sensors. Upon docking, a medical team rushed Andrew to the infirmary, while security personnel escorted Xanth to a containment area. The station buzzed with activity as news of the unauthorized rescue spread. Hours later, Andrew awoke in the medical bay, his chest aching with each breath. Colonel Marcus Harding loomed over him, arms crossed and eyes sharp. "Gordon, you disobeyed direct orders and jeopardized this entire operation," Harding said, his voice low and controlled. "What do you have to say for yourself?" Andrew struggled to sit up. "Sir, I couldn't let them die. It was the right thing to do." Harding's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Your actions were reckless, but—" He paused, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "Damn fine work, son. We'll discuss this further once you're recovered." As Harding left, Andrew's thoughts turned to Xanth. He inquired about her whereabouts and condition, learning she was being held in a secure area of the station. Over the next few days, as Andrew regained his strength, he found himself drawn to the containment area where Xanth was staying. Through a transparent barrier, they began to communicate, sharing stories of their respective worlds. Xanth's multifaceted eyes gleamed with curiosity as Andrew explained human customs and technology. "Your species' ability to adapt and innovate is remarkable," she said, her melodic voice tinged with awe. Andrew, in turn, was fascinated by Xanth's descriptions of Pandronian biology and culture. "I never imagined your civilization could be so complex and beautiful," he admitted. Their conversations didn't go unnoticed. Crew members passing by would slow their pace, casting suspicious glances at the pair. Whispers and rumors began to circulate throughout the station. Meanwhile, in the command center, Colonel Harding received a priority transmission from Earth. Ambassador Elena Chen's holographic image flickered to life, her expression grave. "Colonel, the situation has escalated," Chen reported. "The Pandronian government is demanding the immediate return of their scientist. High Commander Zortax has mobilized a fleet and is threatening military action if we don't comply." Harding's brow furrowed. "Ambassador, returning the Pandronian would reveal our presence in this sector. It could spark a war." Chen nodded solemnly. "I'm aware of the stakes, Colonel. We're doing everything we can to negotiate, but time is running out. You need to prepare for all contingencies." As the diplomatic crisis intensified, strange occurrences began to plague the station. Systems malfunctioned without explanation, security protocols were bypassed, and vital resources went missing. During a routine maintenance check, Andrew discovered evidence of tampering in the station's power core. He reported his findings to Colonel Harding, who ordered a full investigation. Suspicion quickly fell on Xanth. Crew members, already wary of the Pandronian's presence, began to openly accuse her of sabotage. "She's trying to disable our defenses," Lieutenant Sarah Reeves shouted during a heated staff meeting. "We should lock her up before she can do any more damage." Andrew stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Xanth isn't responsible for this. She's been under constant surveillance since she arrived." "And how do we know you're not helping her?" Reeves countered, eyes narrowing. "You've spent an awful lot of time with the alien, Gordon." Colonel Harding silenced the argument with a sharp gesture. "Enough. We'll get to the bottom of this. Until then, I want security doubled and a full systems diagnostic run. Dismissed." As the crew filed out, Andrew lingered behind. "Sir, permission to continue working with Xanth on this investigation? Her knowledge of advanced technology could be invaluable." Harding considered for a moment, then nodded. "Granted, but watch yourself, Gordon. Not everyone shares your trust in our guest." Andrew and Xanth threw themselves into the investigation, poring over system logs and running complex diagnostics. As they worked side by side, their bond deepened, transcending the boundaries of their species. Late one night, as they analyzed a particularly puzzling data set, Xanth suddenly froze. "Andrew, look at this," she said, pointing to a series of anomalies in the station's communication logs. Andrew leaned in, his shoulder brushing against Xanth's exoskeleton. "These patterns, they're not Pandronian or human in origin." Their eyes met, a mixture of excitement and apprehension passing between them. "We need to tell Colonel Harding," Andrew said, reaching for the comm panel. Before he could make the call, the lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in a red glow. "Warning, life support systems failing," the station's AI announced, its voice eerily calm. "Oxygen levels critical in all sectors." Chaos erupted as crew members scrambled to don emergency suits and seal off compromised areas. In the command center, Colonel Harding barked orders, trying to maintain control of the deteriorating situation. "Gordon, get to engineering and see if you can restore main power," Harding commanded over the comm. "And take the Pandronian with you. We need all the help we can get." As Andrew and Xanth raced through the station's corridors, alarms blaring around them, a new complication arose. A Pandronian diplomatic vessel decloaked near the station, its weapons powered but not targeting. This is Ambassador Lyra of the Pandronian Conclave, a familiar voice transmitted on all frequencies. We demand the immediate return of our citizens and an explanation for this human incursion into our space. Xanth's steps faltered. Lyra, she's my sister, she explained to Andrew, her voice a mix of relief and anxiety. The situation had reached a critical point. With life support failing, a potential alien infiltration, and a Pandronian warship on their doorstep, the fate of the station and its inhabitants hung in the balance. As Andrew and Xanth reached the engineering bay, they found Lieutenant John Reeves already there, his hands moving suspiciously over a control panel. "Step away from the console, Reeves," Andrew ordered, his voice firm. Reeves spun around, his eyes wild. "You don't understand. They promised us knowledge beyond our wildest dreams. All we had to do was keep the humans and Pandronians distracted." "Who are they?" Xanth asked, her antennae twitching with tension. Before Reeves could answer, a shimmering field of energy began to coalesce in the center of the room, taking on a form unlike anything Andrew or Xanth had ever seen. The engineering bay fell silent as human, Pandronian, and the mysterious new entity faced each other, the future of their species hanging in the balance. The shimmering entity in the engineering bay solidified into a form that defied easy description. Its body seemed to shift and flow, iridescent patterns cascading across its surface. Multiple appendages extended and retracted as it oriented itself towards the humans and Pandronian. Andrew instinctively stepped in front of Xanth, his hand reaching for a nearby wrench. The alien's presence filled the room with an oppressive weight, making it difficult to breathe. Before anyone could react further, alarms blared throughout the station. Colonel Harding's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with tension. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Life support systems are critical. Proceed immediately to emergency evacuation points." The alien entity pulsed, emitting a high-pitched whine that set Andrew's teeth on edge. Lieutenant Reeves collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. "We need to go," Andrew shouted over the din, grabbing Xanth's arm. They sprinted from the engineering bay, leaving Reeves and the alien behind. As they raced through the corridors, crew members streamed past in a panic. The station's AI continued its emotionless litany. "Oxygen levels at 15% and falling. Please proceed to designated evacuation areas." They rounded a corner to find Colonel Harding directing the evacuation. His face was grim as he shouted orders. "Gordon, status report!" Andrew quickly relayed what they'd seen in engineering. Harding's expression darkened. "Damn it, we've got bigger problems. I'm implementing Protocol Omega. All non-essential personnel are being evacuated to the Pandronian vessel." Xanth's antennae twitched in surprise. "You're trusting my people with your crew?" Harding's laugh was bitter. "We don't have much choice. It's cooperate or suffocate." The colonel turned to address the remaining crew. "Listen up. We've got unknown hostiles on board and systems failing across the board. I need every able body on deck for damage control and defense. This is not a drill, people." As the crew dispersed to their assigned tasks, Andrew felt a tug on his arm. Xanth pulled him aside, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the flashing emergency lights. "Andrew, I have an idea. The system failures. They're too coordinated to be random. There must be a central point of control." Andrew nodded, catching on. "The alien tech is integrated into our systems. If we can find the nexus, we might be able to regain control," Xanth finished. They shared their theory with Colonel Harding, who gave them the go-ahead to investigate. "Take Dr. Voss with you," he ordered. "Her xenobiology expertise might come in handy." As they made their way to the central database, they encountered Dr. Ilara Voss emerging from her lab, arms full of data pads. The xenobiologist's eyes widened at the sight of Xanth. "Fascinating," she breathed, momentarily forgetting the crisis around them. Andrew quickly brought her up to speed as they navigated the maintenance tunnels, avoiding the main corridors where the unknown aliens were searching. Dr. Voss's scientific curiosity was piqued despite the danger. "If we're dealing with a silicon-based life form, their technology could be bioengineered," she mused. "It might explain how they have integrated so seamlessly with our systems." They reached the central database chamber, only to find the door already forced open. Inside, 3 of the shimmering aliens were interfaced with the main console, tendrils of energy connecting them to the station's systems. Andrew's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Then he spotted the main power coupling. "Cover me!" he whispered to Xanth and Dr. Voss. He crept along the wall, using the shadows for cover. The aliens were too focused on their task to notice him. With a deep breath, Andrew lunged for the power coupling and yanked it free. The room plunged into darkness, save for the eerie glow of the aliens. Their forms wavered, and they emitted a series of sharp, clicking sounds. In the confusion, Andrew initiated the emergency data purge. Sparks flew from the console as critical information was wiped to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. The aliens recovered quickly, their bodies solidifying as they turned towards the intruders. One launched a tendril of energy at Andrew, but Xanth was faster. She threw herself in front of him, her exoskeleton absorbing a part of the blast. Andrew caught her as she stumbled, horrified to see scorch marks on her carapace. "Xanth!" Before the aliens could press their advantage, the room erupted in weapons fire. Colonel Harding and a security team had arrived, filling the air with plasma bolts. The firefight was intense but brief. The aliens' superior technology allowed them to deflect most of the shots, but they were clearly outnumbered. They began to retreat, their bodies becoming less solid as they prepared to phase through the walls. "Stop them!" Harding shouted. "We can't let them escape with any data." Andrew noticed one alien still connected to a secondary console. Acting on instinct, he grabbed a loose power cable and jabbed it into the alien's form. There was a blinding flash and a shriek that seemed to resonate on a subatomic level. The alien's form destabilized completely, collapsing into a puddle of shimmering liquid before evaporating entirely. The other 2 aliens, seeing this, accelerated their retreat and vanished through the bulkhead. In the sudden quiet, Andrew became aware of a new alarm. The station's AI announced, "Warning, multiple vessels detected on approach. Identifying signatures, Earth Defense Force and Pandronian battle fleet." Colonel Harding swore under his breath. "Out of the frying pan and into the fire. Gordon, get that system back online. We need to be able to communicate or this is going to turn into a shooting war." As Andrew worked feverishly to restore power to the main systems, he kept glancing at Xanth. The Pandronian was hunched over, clearly in pain from the energy blast she'd intercepted. Dr. Voss knelt beside her, examining the injury. "Remarkable," she murmured. "Your exoskeleton seems to have dispersed most of the energy. A human would have been killed instantly." Xanth's laugh was strained. "Glad to be of service." The lights flickered back to life as Andrew completed the system reboot. Harding was immediately on the comms, trying to establish contact with both approaching fleets. "This is Colonel Marcus Harding of Deep Space Outpost 7. We have a Code Omega situation. Repeat, Code Omega. Unknown hostile aliens have attacked the station. Request immediate assistance and caution on approach." There was a moment of tense silence before 2 voices responded almost simultaneously. "This is Captain Drake Morrison of the ESS Horizon. We're on final approach, Colonel. Hold tight." "Outpost 7, this is High Commander Zortax. Explain the presence of our diplomatic vessel and the status of our citizens immediately." Harding took a deep breath, visibly steeling himself for the diplomatic minefield ahead. "High Commander, I assure you that your people are safe. We've had to evacuate part of our crew to your vessel due to life support failures. We're dealing with a situation that threatens both our species." As Harding continued to negotiate with the approaching fleets, Andrew helped Xanth to her feet. Their eyes met, and a wordless understanding passed between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The station trembled slightly as docking procedures began. The immediate crisis had passed, but Andrew knew the real challenges were just beginning. As humans and Pandronians prepared to come face to face in the aftermath of the attack, the mystery of the unknown aliens loomed large. And somewhere out there, the alien ship waited, its intentions still unknown. The next move in this cosmic chess game remained to be seen. The station trembled as the docking procedures completed. Andrew helped Xanth to a nearby chair, his concern evident as he examined the scorch marks on her carapace. I'll be fine, Xanth assured him, her multifaceted eyes meeting his. We have more pressing matters. Colonel Harding's voice cut through the tension. Gordon, I need you on damage control. Dr. Voss, start analyzing any data we have on these aliens. We need answers, and we need them fast. As Andrew moved to comply, the door hissed open. Captain Drake Morrison of the ESS Horizon strode in, his uniform crisp despite the chaos. Close behind him was a tall insectoid figure that could only be High Commander Zortax of the Pandronian fleet. Colonel Harding, Morrison said, his voice tight. Sit, Rep. Harding quickly briefed them on the alien attack and the current state of the station. Zortax's antennae twitched as he processed the information. And our people? The Pandronian commander demanded. Safe, Harding assured him. We evacuated non-essential personnel to your diplomatic vessel. Zortax's mandibles clicked. A wise decision given the circumstances, but this incursion cannot go unanswered. Agreed, Morrison said, but first we need to secure this station and understand what we're dealing with. For the next several hours, the station buzzed with activity. Andrew found himself elbow-deep in circuitry, repairing critical systems alongside a mixed team of human and Pandronian engineers. The aliens' technological expertise proved invaluable, allowing them to bypass damaged systems with elegant workarounds. As he worked, Andrew couldn't help but notice the sideways glances and whispered conversations. The human crew were clearly uneasy working alongside the Pandronians, and the feeling seemed mutual. Yet as the hours wore on and systems slowly came back online, the tension began to ease. In the makeshift command center, Colonel Harding and Captain Morrison huddled with High Commander Zortax and a new arrival, Ambassador Elena Chen, a petite woman whose calm demeanor belied the gravity of the situation. Gentlemen, Chen said, her voice soft but commanding, we face an unprecedented threat. These shadow aliens, as Lieutenant Reeves called them, have technology far beyond our own. We cannot afford to let old rivalries divide us. Zortax's antenna quivered. You propose an alliance? I do, Chen nodded. A joint task force to investigate this threat and defend against future attacks. Morrison frowned. With all due respect, Ambassador, how can we trust? A commotion at the door interrupted him. Dr. Alara Voss burst in, her eyes wide with excitement. Sirs, you need to see this. She activated a holographic display showing a complex network of energy signatures. We've detected multiple hidden transmission beacons throughout the station. They've been broadcasting our location and data for months, maybe longer. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Check your ships, Harding said grimly. If they're here, they could be anywhere. The next few hours were a flurry of activity as both human and Pandronian crews scoured their vessels. More beacons were found, each one a stark reminder of how deeply the shadows had infiltrated their defenses. In engineering, Andrew worked alongside Xanth to integrate Pandronian shield technology with the station's systems. Despite the lingering pain from her injury, Xanth's expertise was invaluable. You know, Andrew said as they calibrated a power coupling, a week ago, I never would have imagined working with a Pandronian like this. Xanth's mandibles clicked in what Andrew had come to recognize as amusement. And I never imagined I'd trust a human with our technology. Perhaps there's hope for us yet. Their easy companionship didn't go unnoticed. Crew members from both species watched them with a mixture of curiosity and unease. For some, it represented a promising future. For others, a threat to the old order. As they worked, alarms blared through the station. Andrew's heart raced as he sprinted to the command center, Xanth close behind. They arrived to find Harding, Morrison, and Zortax gathered around a tactical display. Ambassador Chen stood to the side, her face pale. Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet of shadow vessels approaching, Morrison explained, his voice grim. They'll be here in less than 48 hours. Zortax's exoskeleton seemed to darken. Then we have no choice. We must stand together or fall divided. Chen stepped forward. I've received authorization from Earth Command. The alliance is approved. High Commander, your thoughts? All eyes turned to Zortax. The Pandronian was still for a long moment, then inclined his head. The conclave agrees. Let it be known that from this day, humans and Pandronians stand as one against the shadow threat. A cheer went up from the assembled crew, human and Pandronian alike. But Andrew noticed not everyone joined in. Lieutenant Reeves, still under guard, watched the proceedings with a mixture of fear and, was that anticipation? As the impromptu celebration died down, Harding took charge. All right, people, we've got work to do. Morrison, Zortax, I need you to coordinate our defense strategy. Dr. Voss, keep working on understanding that alien tech. Andrew, Xanth, double time it on those shield upgrades. We need every advantage we can get. As the command center emptied, Andrew felt a hand on his arm. He turned to find Ambassador Chen looking at him intently. Mr. Gordon, she said quietly, I've been watching you and Xanth. Your partnership, it's important. More than you know. Keep working together. Show everyone what we can accomplish when we set aside our differences. Andrew nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. As he and Xanth headed back to engineering, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenges were just beginning. In the depths of space, undetected by the station's sensors, a shadow vessel watched and waited. Inside, inhuman intelligences processed the data, streaming in from their hidden beacons. The humans and Pandronians had surprised them with their alliance, but it changed nothing. The harvest would proceed as planned. The vessel's engines flared to life, and it slipped away into the darkness, rejoining the approaching armada. The battle for the future of two civilizations was about to begin. The station hummed with renewed energy as human and Pandronian crews worked side by side, racing against time to prepare for the impending shadow attack. Andrew and Xanth found themselves at the heart of this flurry of activity, their unlikely partnership serving as a beacon of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. As they calibrated the newly integrated shield systems, Andrew couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He glanced at Xanth, her mandibles clicking softly as she focused on the intricate circuitry before them. Xanth, he said quietly, careful not to be overheard, I think we might have a mole on board. The Pandronian's antennae twitched, a sign Andrew had come to recognize as surprise. What makes you say that? Think about it. The shadows knew exactly where to hit us, and those beacons Dr. Voss found, they had to have been planted by someone with intimate knowledge of the station. Xanth's compound eyes seemed to darken as she processed this information. If you're right, we need to flush them out before the shadow fleet arrives. Andrew nodded, his mind racing. I have an idea, but it's risky. We announce a fake breakthrough in shadow tech integration, something too tempting for our mole to ignore. A trap, Xanth clicked approvingly. Clever, but we'll need to coordinate with security without alerting the saboteur. They worked quickly, using their access to the station's systems to set up a secure communication channel with Colonel Harding. The plan was set in motion within hours. Andrew stood before a hastily assembled group of engineers and scientists, his heart pounding as he delivered the rehearsed lie. We've managed to reverse engineer a key component of shadow cloaking technology. With this, we might be able to detect their ships before they decloak. The room erupted in excited chatter, but Andrew's eyes were fixed on Dr. Alara Voss. The scientist's face remained impassive, but he noticed a slight tremor in her hand as she gripped her datapad. Hours later, as Andrew and Xanth monitored the systems they had rigged to detect any unauthorized access, alarms blared. Security footage showed Dr. Voss in a restricted area, her fingers flying over a console as she attempted to access the fabricated shadow tech data. Colonel Harding's voice crackled over the comms. All units apprehend Dr. Alara Voss immediately. She is to be considered armed and extremely dangerous. But Voss was one step ahead. As security forces converged on her location, she activated a hidden device. The station's internal sensors went dark, plunging the corridors into chaos. Damn it! Andrew smacked his palm on the console. She's heading for the lower levels. We can't let her escape. Xanth's exoskeleton seemed to bristle with willpower. Go! I'll coordinate with the command center. We need those shields operational before the shadows arrive. Andrew nodded, grabbing a plasma rifle from a nearby weapons locker. He assembled a small team of security personnel, their faces grim as they descended into the bowels of the station. The lower levels were a maze of maintenance tunnels and waste processing units. The air was thick with the acrid smell of industrial chemicals. Andrew's team moved cautiously, their weapons at the ready. A burst of plasma fire erupted from behind a bank of recycling units. Andrew dove for cover, feeling the heat of the blast singe his hair. He returned fire, his shots illuminating the dim corridor in brief, violent flashes. "Dr. Voss," he shouted over the din of battle. "It's over! Surrender now!" Voss's voice echoed through the chamber, tinged with a manic edge. "You don't understand, Gordon. The shadows are the future. They've promised me power beyond your comprehension." Another volley of plasma bolts forced Andrew's team back. He gritted his teeth, realizing that Voss's knowledge of the station's layout gave her a significant advantage. Meanwhile, in the command center, Xanth worked feverishly alongside human and Pandronian technicians. The merged shield technology flickered to life, enveloping the station in a shimmering barrier of energy. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the comms. "Shadow Fleet detected. Prepare for engagement." High Commander Zortax's ships moved into formation, creating a protective perimeter around the station. The ESS Horizon took point, its advanced weaponry primed and ready. The first wave of shadow attacks struck with devastating force. Several Pandronian ships erupted in silent explosions, their crews lost in an instant. The ESS Horizon's hull groaned under the onslaught, but its point defense systems held, picking off shadow fighters with surgical precision. In the waste recycling plant, Andrew's team had Voss cornered. The firefight had taken its toll, with scorch marks and debris littering the area. Andrew could see the desperation in Voss's eyes as she realized her predicament. "It's not too late, Doctor," Andrew called out, his voice hoarse from the acrid smoke. "Help us stop this. Tell us what you know about the shadows." Voss laughed bitterly. "You're all so blind. The shadows will reshape the galaxy. Those who serve them will be elevated. The rest—" She trailed off, her eyes darting to a hidden panel on the wall. Andrew lunged forward, but he was too late. Voss slammed her hand on the panel, activating a hidden shadow beacon. The station shuddered as a massive energy signature appeared on their sensors. In the command center, Xanth's mandibles clicked in alarm. "Massive shadow vessel decloaking. It's larger than anything we've ever encountered." The shadow dreadnought materialized dangerously close to the station, its weapon systems charging with ominous intent. The combined human and Pandronian fleet seemed dwarfed by its immense bulk. As panic threatened to overtake the command center, Andrew's voice cut through the chaos. "The fusion reactor. We can use it to generate an electromagnetic pulse. It might be enough to disable their systems." Colonel Harding's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "It's risky as hell, but it might be our only shot. Do it." Andrew and Xanth raced to the reactor control room, their movements perfectly in sync as they began to modify the reactor's output. The station groaned around them, the stress of the impending attack pushing its systems to the limit. "Xanth," Andrew said, his fingers flying over the controls, "if this doesn't work—" The Pandronian's compound eyes met his gaze. "It will work. We will make it work." As the Shadow Dreadnought's weapons reached full charge, Andrew and Xanth initiated the pulse. A wave of electromagnetic energy surged outward, washing over the massive ship. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, like a great beast wounded, the Dreadnought's lights flickered and died. Captain Morrison's voice rang out, filled with fierce willpower. "All ships concentrate fire on the Dreadnought. This is our chance." The combined firepower of the human and Pandronian fleet lanced out, tearing into the vulnerable hull of the shadow vessel. Explosions blossomed across its surface, chain reactions ripping through its superstructure. As the Dreadnought began to break apart, the remaining shadow ships fell into disarray. High Commander Zortax seized the moment, leading a daring charge that scattered the enemy fleet. In the reactor control room, alarms began to blare. The fusion reactor, pushed beyond its limits by the electromagnetic pulse, was becoming unstable. Andrew's eyes widened as he realized the gravity of the situation. "We need to vent the core manually," he said, his voice tight. "But the radiation levels—" Xanth's antennae twitched as she processed the information. "My exoskeleton might provide some protection. I should go." Andrew shook his head vehemently. "No way, I can't let you take that risk. I'll do it." As they argued, each insisting on sacrificing themselves for the other, Colonel Harding's voice cut through their debate. "Both of you, get to that reactor chamber now. Work together. That's an order." They shared a look of understanding before racing to the chamber. The door hissed shut behind them, sealing them in with the unstable reactor core. Radiation warnings flashed on their suits' displays as they began the intricate process of venting the core. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, months of working side by side, culminating in this moment of crisis. As they worked, Andrew felt a surge of emotion for his alien partner. Despite their differences, despite the history between their species, they had formed a bond that transcended it all. The radiation levels continued to climb, their suit's integrity failing under the onslaught. Andrew's vision began to blur, his movements becoming sluggish. He looked at Xanth, saw her struggling as well, but her mandibles were set in purpose. With a final Herculean effort, they completed the venting sequence. The reactor's angry roar subsided, the station's systems stabilizing. But for Andrew and Xanth, the world was fading to black. As they collapsed to the floor, the last thing Andrew saw was Xanth's compound eyes, reflecting the emergency lights of the chamber. Then darkness claimed him, leaving the fate of the two heroes uncertain as medical teams raced to their rescue. Location as medical teams raced to their aid. The station's medical bay erupted into controlled chaos as Dr. Marcus Chen and Dr. Zara burst through the doors, their faces set with unyielding commitment. Nurses and medical technicians swarmed around the two unconscious figures on gurneys, their bodies battered and broken by the extreme radiation exposure. "Get them into stasis pods immediately," Dr. Chen barked, his eyes scanning the vital signs displayed on the portable monitors. "We need to stabilize their cellular degradation before it's too late." Dr. Zara's antenna twitched as she processed the data streaming across her cybernetic interface. "Their genetic structure is collapsing. Conventional treatments will be insufficient." As the medical team worked feverishly to place Andrew and Xanth into the sleek, high-tech stasis pods, Dr. Chen's mind raced. He turned to his Pandronian counterpart, his voice low and urgent. "Dr. Zara, I have a radical proposal. We might be able to save them, but it will require pushing the boundaries of both our medical knowledge." Dr. Zara's compound eyes focused intently on the human xenobiologist. "Explain." "A hybrid approach," Dr. Chen said, gesturing to the stasis pods as they hummed to life. "We combine human stem cell therapy with Pandronian regenerative techniques. It's never been attempted before, but it might be our only chance." The Pandronian doctor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "The risk of rejection would be astronomical." "Yes, but so is the potential reward. If we succeed, we might not only save their lives, but also create a breakthrough in cross-species medical treatment." After a moment of tense silence, Dr. Zara nodded. "Agreed. Let us begin." As days turned into weeks, the station became a hive of activity. In the medical bay, Dr. Chen and Dr. Zara worked tirelessly, their team a seamless blend of human and Pandronian medical professionals. They toiled over microscopes and gene sequencers, meticulously crafting a treatment that pushed the boundaries of known science. Meanwhile, in the station's command center, Ambassador Elena Chen stood before a holographic display, her face illuminated by the swirling star maps. Beside her, High Commander Zortax's exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights. "The Joint Task Force has made significant progress," Ambassador Chen reported, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "Dr. Reeves and Engineer Krex have successfully isolated several key components of shadow technology from the debris field." Zortax's antennae twitched with interest. "And what of the human traitor, Dr. Voss?" Ambassador Chen's expression darkened. "Colonel Harding's investigation has uncovered a network of shadow sleeper agents embedded in both our societies. It's extensive." Before Zortax could respond, A communication channel crackled to life. Captain Drake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen, his features taut with excitement and concern. "Ambassador, High Commander," he said, nodding to each in turn. "We've just concluded a skirmish with a Shadow Scout ship. We've captured it, along with its pilot." The command center erupted in a flurry of activity. Orders were issued, security protocols engaged. Within hours, the captured Shadow operative, a being called Nexus, was secured in a specially designed containment cell deep within the station. As the days wore on, tensions began to simmer. A crowd had gathered outside the station, their angry voices carrying through the reinforced viewports. Signs bobbed above the sea of faces, bearing slogans like "Humans First" and "No Alien Alliance." Ambassador Chen watched the scene with a heavy heart. "General Marcus Graves," she said, shaking her head. "I never thought he'd stoop to this level of xenophobia." Colonel Harding stepped up beside her, his face grim. "We've increased security, but the situation is volatile. One wrong move could spark a riot." In the medical bay, Dr. Chen and Dr. Zara hovered over the stasis pods containing Andrew and Xanth. The monitors beeped steadily, displaying a range of bio-readings that would have been incomprehensible to most. "Look at this," Dr. Chen said, pointing to a series of rapidly changing numbers. "The cellular regeneration rate is off the charts. It's like their bodies are adapting to each other." Dr. Zara leaned in, her compound eyes widening. "Fascinating. The hybrid treatment seems to have triggered a symbiotic response. Their biological systems are integrating in ways we never anticipated." As the weeks stretched on, the station continued its frantic preparations. New weapon systems were installed, shields were reinforced, and the combined human Pandronian fleet ran countless drills under the newly promoted Admiral Morrison's command. In the research lab, Dr. Alan Reeves and Engineer Krex stood before a pulsing energy weapon, its otherworldly design a stark contrast to the familiar technology surrounding it. "We've done it," Dr. Reeves breathed, his eyes alight with triumph. "A working prototype based on shadow technology. This could change everything." Krex's mandibles clicked in agreement. "Indeed, but we must move quickly. Long-range sensors have detected a massive shadow fleet assembling on the fringes of Pandronian space." The news spread through the station like wildfire. In the medical bay, Dr. Chen and Dr. Zara exchanged worried glances as they prepared to bring Andrew and Xanth out of stasis. "Their recovery has been remarkable," Dr. Chen said, his fingers dancing over the control panel. "But we have no idea how they'll react to their changes." As the stasis pods began to power down, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Colonel Harding's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with urgency. "Security alert! The Shadow Operative Nexus has escaped containment. All personnel, be on high alert. He is considered extremely dangerous." Dr. Chen's eyes widened in horror as he realized Nexus's likely destination. "Lock down the medical bay," he shouted to his team. "We can't let him near Andrew and Xanth." Outside in the corridor, the sounds of combat grew closer. The hiss of energy weapons and the shouts of security personnel echoed off the metal walls. Inside the medical bay, the stasis pods slowly opened, revealing the still forms of Andrew and Xanth. As their eyes fluttered open, the station shuddered under the first assault of the approaching shadow fleet. The final battle for the future of both species had begun, with Andrew and Xanth caught in the center of the maelstrom. As the medical bay doors hissed open, Andrew's eyes fluttered, adjusting to the harsh light. His body felt strange, tingling with unfamiliar sensations. Beside him, Xanth stirred, her compound eyes focusing on their surroundings. Dr. Chen's face swam into view, etched with concern and urgency. "Andrew, Xanth, we had to wake you prematurely. The station is under attack." Andrew tried to sit up, his muscles responding with unexpected strength. He glanced at his hands, noticing a faint iridescent sheen to his skin. "What's happened to us?" Dr. Zara stepped forward, her antennae twitching rapidly. "The hybrid treatment has altered your biology. You've become something new." Before they could process this information, an explosion rocked the medical bay. Alarms blared as smoke billowed through the doorway. Nexus, Dr. Chen breathed, his eyes wide with fear. He's coming for you. Andrew and Xanth shared a look of understanding. Without a word, they leapt from their beds, their movements fluid and synchronized. Andrew marveled at his heightened senses, able to hear the faintest footsteps approaching through the chaos. Dr. Zara thrust two sleek weapons into their hands. Prototype shadow tech. You'll need them. As if on cue, a dark figure materialized in the doorway. Nexus, the escaped shadow operative, his body seeming to absorb the light around him. He lunged forward with inhuman speed, but Andrew and Xanth were ready. They moved in perfect harmony, Andrew ducking low as Xanth leapt high. The shadow weapon in Andrew's hand pulsed with energy, releasing a burst that narrowly missed Nexus. The operative retaliated, his own weapon carving a path of destruction through the medical equipment. The fight spilled into the corridor, a blur of motion and energy discharges. Andrew felt his newly enhanced body responding instinctively, matching Nexus's speed and strength. Xanth's movements complemented his own, her Pandronian agility now augmented by human intuition. Colonel Harding's voice cut through the din. Andrew, Xanth on your left. A security team led by Harding poured into the corridor, laying down suppressing fire. Seizing the moment, Andrew closed the distance to Nexus, his fist connecting with a force that surprised even him. Xanth followed through, her legs sweeping Nexus off his feet. In a final, coordinated move, they brought their weapons to bear on the fallen operative. A pulse of energy enveloped Nexus, rendering him unconscious. Harding approached, his eyes widening as he took in Andrew and Xanth's transformed appearances. Impressive work, you two, but we're not out of the woods yet. The Shadow Fleet has begun its assault. They raced to the command center, Andrew marveling at his newfound speed and agility. The station shuddered under the impact of enemy fire, but he felt oddly calm, his enhanced senses processing the chaos with startling clarity. As they burst into the command center, a holographic image of Admiral Morrison flickered to life. His face was grim, the sounds of battle echoing behind him. The outer defensive lines are collapsing. We're outnumbered and outgunned. High Commander Zortax turned to Andrew and Xanth, his exoskeleton gleaming under the emergency lights. Your unique abilities may be our only advantage. We need you to lead a strike team to infiltrate the Shadow flagship. Ambassador Elena Chen nodded, her face tight with tension. It's a high-risk mission, but it may be our only chance to turn the tide. Andrew felt Xanth's presence beside him, their newfound connection humming with shared purpose. We're ready, he said, speaking for both of them. As they prepared to board the stealth shuttle, Dr. Reeves and Engineer Krex burst into the hangar, their faces flushed with excitement. Wait, Dr. Reeves called out. We've made a discovery about your hybrid biology. The energy signature you emit could potentially disrupt shadow technology on a massive scale. Krex's mandibles clicked rapidly. But to generate a field large enough, you'd need to be in close proximity to their superweapon. Andrew's mind raced, processing the implications. The mission had just become even more dangerous, but also more crucial. As they boarded the shuttle, Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper and Sub-Commander Krell joined them, their contrasting human and Pandronian features a testament to the Alliance's strength. Ready to raise some hell? Harper grinned, his hand resting on the newly installed Shadow Tech controls. The hangar doors opened, revealing the chaos of battle beyond. Massive shadow ships loomed against the backdrop of space, their weapons tearing through the human Pandronian fleet. As the stealth shuttle slipped into the fray, its experimental cloaking device engaged, Andrew felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He glanced at Xanth, seeing his own commitment reflected in her compound eyes. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the shuttle. A massive structure had appeared at the edge of the battlefield, its size dwarfing even the largest shadow vessels. The superweapon, Krell hissed, his antennae quivering. They watched in horror as the behemoth began to charge, its target clearly locked on the distant shipyards. Andrew's enhanced vision picked out the minute details of the superweapon's structure, his mind already formulating a plan. He turned to his team, his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. Change of plans, he said, feeling Xanth's agreement through their bond. We're going after that superweapon. It's time to put our new abilities to the ultimate test. As Harper expertly piloted the shuttle through the chaotic battlefield, weaving between massive capital ships and swarms of fighters, Andrew and Xanth prepared themselves for what lay ahead. The fate of two species now rested in their hands, their unique bond the key to turning the tide of war. The shuttle accelerated towards the looming superweapon, a tiny speck of hope against the vast darkness of space. Space, its experimental cloaking device, engaged. Andrew gripped the console, his enhanced senses processing the chaos around them with startling clarity. The shuttle shuddered as nearby explosions sent shockwaves through the battlefield. "Cloaking field is fluctuating," Harper reported, his fingers dancing across the controls. "The energy discharges are interfering with the experimental tech." Andrew nodded, moving to the engineering station. "I'll handle it. Xanth, take the helm." As Andrew's hands flew over the controls, manually adjusting the field strength, Xanth slid into the pilot's seat. Her compound eyes tracked multiple targets simultaneously, allowing her to navigate through the debris field with uncanny precision. A massive piece of hull plating from a destroyed cruiser loomed ahead. Xanth banked hard, narrowly avoiding collision. The maneuver sent them spiraling between two shadow frigates, exchanging fire. "Steady," Andrew called out, his voice calm despite the danger. "Field strength stabilizing." As they approached the shadow flagship, Sub-Commander Krell's antennae twitched rapidly. "Detecting an anomaly in their shield matrix," he reported. Harper leaned forward, studying the readouts. "It's a pattern, micro-fluctuations in the energy field. Occurs every 47 seconds. Andrew and Xanth shared a look of understanding. "A weakness," Xanth said, her mandibles clicking in excitement. "If we time our approach right," Harper added, a grin spreading across his face, "we can slip through during one of these fluctuations." Krell's exoskeleton shimmered as he input new calculations. "Next window in 30 seconds. Recommend full thrust on my mark." The team held their breath as Xanth positioned the shuttle. The massive bulk of the shadow flagship filled their viewport, its dark surface seeming to absorb the light of nearby explosions. "Mark!" Krell shouted. Xanth punched the throttle. The shuttle shot forward, a nearly invisible streak against the backdrop of space. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they would impact against the flagship's shields. Then they were through, the shuttle's hull scraping against the energy field as it collapsed behind them. "We're in," Andrew breathed, allowing himself a moment of relief before focusing on the next phase of their mission. The shuttle touched down in a deserted landing bay. As the team disembarked, Andrew addressed them. "Harper, Krell, head for the propulsion systems. Disable their engines and anything else you can. Xanth and I will make for the central command." With quick nods, the team split up. Andrew and Xanth moved swiftly through the alien corridors, their hybrid physiology allowing them to sense approaching threats before they came into view. As they rounded a corner, they encountered their first group of Shadow Crew members. The aliens were tall, their bodies seeming to bend the light around them. Andrew raised his weapon, but Xanth was faster. She leapt forward, her enhanced agility carrying her into the midst of the enemy. Andrew followed, his fist connecting with impossible force. The fight was brief but intense. Andrew marveled at how naturally he and Xanth worked together, their movements perfectly synchronized. As the last Shadow Crewman fell, they paused to catch their breath. "You okay?" Andrew asked, noticing a scorch mark on Xanth's exoskeleton. She nodded, her compound eyes scanning their surroundings. "The changes to our biology, it's like I can anticipate your movements before you make them." "Same here," Andrew replied. "Come on, we need to keep moving." As they pressed deeper into the flagship, they encountered increasingly fierce resistance. Each firefight pushed their new abilities to the limit. Andrew found himself reacting with inhuman speed, dodging energy blasts that would have vaporized him just weeks ago. Finally, they reached the central command center. The doors hissed open, revealing a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and pulsing energy conduits. At its center stood a figure that radiated power and malevolence. "Void," Xanth whispered, her antennae quivering. The Shadow Supreme Commander turned, his form seeming to absorb the light around him. When he spoke, his voice was like ice scraping against metal. The abominations. How fitting that you should come to me. Without warning, Void unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. Andrew and Xanth dove for cover, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to narrowly avoid disintegration. Your hybrid abilities are impressive, Void taunted, advancing on their position. But they are nothing compared to the power I wield. Andrew met Xanth's gaze, a silent plan forming between them. As one, they burst from cover, moving in perfect synchronization. Andrew went low, sweeping Void's legs, while Xanth leapt high, her fist striking the Shadow Leader's upper body. Void staggered but quickly recovered. He lashed out with tendrils of dark energy, forcing Andrew and Xanth apart. The battle raged across the command center, consoles exploding in showers of sparks as stray energy blasts connected. Just as it seemed Void might overwhelm them, the flagship shuddered violently. Emergency klaxons blared throughout the ship. Harper and Krell, Andrew grinned, seizing the moment of distraction. With renewed vigor, Andrew and Xanth pressed their attack. Their movements became a blur, striking Void from multiple angles before he could react. Finally, with a combined assault of Shadow Tech weaponry and hybrid strength, they brought the Supreme Commander to his knees. Void looked up at them, his featureless face somehow conveying hatred. "You've won nothing," he snarled. Then, with lightning speed, he reached for a nearby console. "No!" Xanth cried out, but it was too late. Void's hand slammed down on a glowing panel. The ship's computer announced, in an emotionless voice, "Self-destruct sequence initiated. Detonation in 10 minutes. Andrew rushed to the central computer, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "I'm accessing their database. If we can't stop this ship from blowing, we can at least take their secrets with us." As Andrew worked, Xanth kept watch, her weapon trained on the incapacitated Void. Suddenly, her antennae twitched. "Andrew, look!" On one of the few functioning displays, they saw the Shadow superweapon beginning its final charging sequence. The massive structure pulsed with ominous energy, its target clearly locked on the distant Allied shipyards. "We have to stop it," Xanth said, her voice filled with urgency. Andrew nodded, quickly transmitting the stolen data to the Allied fleet. "Our mission's changed. We can't go back. We need to get to that superweapon." They raced through the disintegrating flagship, dodging falling debris and pockets of escaping atmosphere. They found Harper and Krell at the shuttle, looking battered but alive. "Nice work with the engines," Andrew said as they boarded. Harper grinned, though his face was tight with tension. "What's the plan now?" As the shuttle lifted off, Andrew quickly explained their new objective. The team watched through the viewport as the Shadow flagship exploded behind them, the shock wave buffeting their small craft. Andrew opened a channel to the Allied fleet. "Admiral Morrison, High Commander Zortax, this is Strike Team Alpha. We've neutralized the Shadow flagship, but their superweapon is preparing to fire. We're on approach to infiltrate and disable it." There was a moment of static-filled silence before Morrison's voice came through. "Understood, Strike Team. That weapon will annihilate our shipyards if it fires. You're our only shot at stopping it." "Good luck," Zortax added, his usually stoic voice tinged with emotion. "May the stars guide you." As Andrew piloted the shuttle towards the looming superweapon, the team prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. The massive structure grew larger in their viewport, energy readings spiking as it neared firing capacity. 2 minutes until weapon discharge," Krill reported, his exoskeleton pulsing with nervous energy. Andrew shared a look with Xanth, feeling their unique connection humming with shared purpose and tenacity. As they approached the superweapon's outer defenses, he gripped the controls tightly. "All right, team," he said, his voice steady. "All right, team," Andrew said, his voice steady. "This is it. Brace for impact." The shuttle hurtled towards the Shadow superweapon, its massive form filling their viewport. Instantly, a barrage of enemy fire erupted around them, threatening to tear their small craft apart. "Evasive maneuvers!" Harper shouted, his hands flying over the defensive controls. Andrew's fingers tightened on the helm, his enhanced reflexes pushed to their limits as he weaved through the onslaught. Beside him, Xanth's compound eyes darted rapidly, tracking multiple threats simultaneously. Bank left now, she called out, her antennae quivering with tension. Andrew didn't hesitate, trusting Xanth's instincts implicitly. The shuttle lurched sideways, narrowly avoiding a concentrated beam of energy that would have vaporized them instantly. In the rear of the shuttle, Krell worked in perfect sync with Harper, his exoskeleton pulsing as he diverted power to the shields. Our defenses are holding, but barely, he reported, his voice tight with strain. A massive explosion rocked the shuttle, sending sparks cascading from overloaded consoles. Harper grunted, fighting to keep their weapons online. We've lost our port thrusters. Andrew, we can't take much more of this. Andrew gritted his teeth, feeling Xanth's tenacity through their bond. We're almost there, just a little longer. The superweapon loomed before them, its surface a maze of energy conduits and alien geometry. Xanth spotted their target, a maintenance airlock barely large enough to accommodate their craft. There, she shouted, highlighting the location on Andrew's display. Without hesitation, Andrew aimed the shuttle directly at the airlock. The team braced for impact as he pushed the engines beyond their limits. With a deafening screech of metal on metal, the shuttle crashed through the airlock's outer doors. Alarms blared as the cabin depressurized. Exosuits now, Andrew commanded, already reaching for his helmet. The team moved with practiced efficiency, donning their specialized gear designed to withstand the extreme conditions inside the weapon. As the inner airlock door buckled under the pressure differential, they stood ready. With a final groan, the door gave way. Andrew and Xanth took point, their hybrid biology allowing them to instinctively navigate the labyrinth of shadow technology. Harper and Krell followed closely, weapons at the ready. They had barely made it 50 meters when the first wave of security drones descended upon them. Sleek, spider-like machines skittered along the walls and ceiling, their weapons charging with an ominous hum. Take cover, Harper yelled, diving behind a jutting piece of machinery. Andrew and Xanth moved as one, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to dodge the initial barrage. Xanth leapt impossibly high, her fist smashing through 2 drones before she even touched the ground. Andrew's hands became a blur as he redirected energy blasts back at their attackers, his newfound abilities surprising even himself. Krell's exoskeleton shimmered as he unleashed a barrage of electromagnetic pulses, shorting out several drones at once. Harper's aim was impeccable, each shot finding a vulnerable spot in the machine's armor. As the last drone fell, Andrew accessed a nearby terminal, his hybrid mind deciphering the alien language with startling speed. The core is 3 levels down, he reported. We need to move fast. They pressed deeper into the superweapon, facing increasingly fierce resistance. Shadow warriors materialized from the very walls, their bodies bending light in ways that defied physics. The close quarters turned the battle into a brutal melee. Andrew found himself back-to-back with Xanth, their movements perfectly synchronized. He ducked as she swung over his head, her kick connecting with a shadow warrior's face. In turn, he swept the legs out from another attacker, allowing Xanth to deliver a finishing blow. Through their bond, Andrew felt a surge of something deeper than just battlefield camaraderie. He pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the task at hand. As they fought their way towards the core, Andrew's comms crackled to life. Admiral Morrison's voice came through, strained but determined. Strike Team Alpha, be advised. We're launching an all-out assault on the Shadow Armada. High Commander Zortax is leading a suicide mission to create a gap in their defenses. This is your window. Make it count. The news galvanized the team. They redoubled their efforts, pushing through the pain and exhaustion. Finally, they reached the entrance to the core chamber. This is it, Andrew said, his voice hoarse. Whatever happens in there, it's been an honor serving with all of you. The doors hissed open, revealing a vast spherical chamber. At its center pulsed the heart of the superweapon, a swirling vortex of dark energy that seemed to devour light itself. Surrounding it were dozens of elite shadow warriors, their weapons trained on the entrance. For a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. Then chaos erupted. Andrew and Xanth launched themselves into the fray, their hybrid abilities pushing them beyond the limits of either of their original species. Harper and Krell provided covering fire, their military expertise allowing them to outmaneuver the shadow forces. The battle was intense, each side fighting with the desperation of those who know everything hangs in the balance. Andrew felt the burn of an energy weapon grazing his side, the pain threatening to overwhelm him. Suddenly, the agony lessened. He looked up to see Xanth, her eyes locked on his, her body trembling as she took on a portion of his pain. Their shared sacrifice seemed to ignite something within them. Moving with renewed purpose, they carved a path through the shadow ranks. Just as they reached the core, Dr. Reeves's voice came through their comms. "Strike team, listen carefully. The amplification device must be physically integrated with the core to disable the weapon. But I must warn you, the energy discharge will be catastrophic. Whoever carries out this task may not survive." Andrew's eyes met Xanth's. In that moment, a lifetime of unspoken feelings passed between them. Without a word, they both knew what had to be done. "We'll do it together," Andrew said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. Xanth nodded, her compound eyes reflecting a mix of fear and dedication. "Two species, one purpose," she replied, echoing the Alliance's motto. As Harper and Krell held off the remaining shadow forces, Andrew and Xanth approached the pulsating core. They removed their exosuit gloves, exposing their hybrid skin to the raw energy of the weapon. The amplification device activated, creating a feedback loop that began to destabilize the core. The chamber shook violently as systems began to overload. Andrew and Xanth stood their ground, their bodies absorbing and redirecting energy in ways that defied understanding. Through their shared agony, their bond deepened, becoming something beyond either human or Pandronian experience. "We need to go, now!" Harper shouted over the din of alarms and explosions. With a Herculean effort, Andrew and Xanth tore themselves away from the core. Their bodies glowed with absorbed energy, leaving trails of light as they staggered towards the exit. The team fought their way back to the shuttle, the superweapon crumbling around them. Harper's skills as a pilot were put to the ultimate test as he maneuvered their damaged craft out of the disintegrating structure. As they cleared the blast radius, the superweapon exploded in a spectacular burst of energy. The shockwave rippled through the Shadow Fleet, disabling their most advanced technology. In the shuttle, Andrew and Xanth collapsed, their bodies overwhelmed by the energy they had absorbed. Harper watched in awe as their forms seemed to shimmer and fluctuate, undergoing some profound transformation. "Medical frigate, this is Lieutenant Commander Harper," he called over the comms. "Prepare for incoming wounded, 2 hybrid humans with unprecedented biological changes. We're going to need every expert you've got." As the shuttle limped towards the Allied fleet, the battle raged on. But for the 4 members of Strike Team Alpha, the war faded into the background. Their thoughts were focused solely on the 2 heroes lying unconscious on the shuttle floor, their sacrifice potentially changing the course of history and their own existence forever. Forever. The shuttle docked with the medical frigate, its hull still smoking from the battle. Medical teams swarmed the craft as soon as the airlock sealed, their faces a mix of awe and concern as they caught sight of Andrew and Xanth. The 2 heroes lay motionless on the deck, their bodies pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Harper and Krell stood back, watching helplessly as the medical staff carefully transferred Andrew and Xanth onto hover gurneys. "What's happening to them?" Harper asked, his voice barely above a whisper. A tall, silver-haired human in a lab coat stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Marcus Chen. We're not entirely sure, but their cellular structure is in a state of rapid flux. We need to get them to the containment chamber immediately." As they rushed through the corridors of the frigate, Andrew's form shimmered, briefly taking on distinctly Pandronian features before shifting back. Xanth's antennae grew and receded in a matter of seconds, her skin cycling through a rainbow of hues. The medical frigate's engines roared to life, pushing the craft to its limits as it raced towards the station. In the medbay, Dr. Chen worked alongside a Pandronian expert, Dr. Zara, their movements a carefully choreographed dance of human and alien medical techniques. "Their DNA is rewriting itself," Dr. Zara observed, her compound eyes fixed on a holographic display of Andrew and Xanth's genetic structure. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "The energy from the shadow weapon, it's not just affecting them on a physical level. It's fundamentally altering their very essence. For days, the station's most brilliant minds worked tirelessly to stabilize Andrew and Xanth. Human doctors collaborated with Pandronian healers, combining cutting-edge medical technology with ancient alien wisdom. The containment chamber hummed with energy, a swirling vortex of light surrounding the two heroes as their bodies continued to evolve. Outside the medbay, life in the galaxy moved on. Admiral Morrison's voice crackled over the comms, reporting on the final push against the remaining shadow forces. High Commander Zortax led a daring raid on a shadow stronghold, capturing vital intelligence that would help secure their victory. In a quiet corner of the station, Ambassador Elena Chen met with the Pandronian leadership. Their voices were hushed but filled with hope as they drafted the framework for a new era of cooperation between their species. A week passed. The station held its breath, waiting for news. Then on the 8th day, alarms blared in the medbay. Dr. Chen and Dr. Zara rushed to the containment chamber, their eyes wide as they took in the sight before them. The swirling energy had coalesced, forming two distinct figures. Andrew and Xanth opened their eyes simultaneously, their bodies radiating a soft, ethereal light. They were neither fully human nor Pandronian, but something entirely new. Andrew's skin had taken on a subtle iridescence, his eyes now multifaceted like Xanth's, but retaining their human shape. Xanth's form was more humanoid, her exoskeleton softened into smooth skin, yet her antennae remained, now glowing, with an inner light. As they stepped out of the containment chamber, Andrew reached for Xanth's hand. The moment their fingers touched, a wave of understanding passed between them. Their minds connected on a level beyond words, sharing thoughts and emotions with perfect clarity. "I can feel you," Andrew whispered, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "Not just your thoughts, but your very being." Xanth nodded, her new features expressing a depth of emotion impossible in her previous form. "We are one, yet still ourselves, changed but undiminished." The news of their awakening spread through the station like wildfire. Humans and Pandronians alike gathered in the main atrium, eager to catch a glimpse of the heroes who had saved them all. As Andrew and Xanth entered, a hush fell over the crowd. Admiral Morrison stepped forward, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile. "On behalf of humanity and our Pandronian allies, I thank you for your sacrifice and your service. Your actions have not only saved countless lives, but have also forged a bond between our peoples that will endure for generations." High Commander Zortax raised his arms in a traditional Pandronian salute. "You embody the best of both our species. Your transformation is a testament to the power of unity in the face of cosmic threats." In the days that followed, Andrew and Xanth discovered the full extent of their new abilities. They found they could manipulate energy fields, accelerate healing in others, and even perceive quantum fluctuations in the fabric of space-time. More importantly, they realized that their love for each other had become an integral part of their new existence, transcending physical attraction or emotional attachment. Their presence on the station catalyzed a new wave of cooperation between humans and Pandronians. Scientists from both species worked together to study Andrew and Xanth's unique physiology, hoping to unlock new technologies and medical treatments. As the immediate crisis of the Shadow War faded, Andrew and Xanth found themselves drawn to the plight of those most affected by the conflict. They traveled to ravaged colonies, using their newfound powers to restore blighted ecosystems and heal those injured in the fighting. On a small agricultural world near the front lines, Andrew knelt beside a field of withered crops. He placed his hand on the parched soil, closing his eyes in concentration. Slowly, a soft glow spread from his fingers, seeping into the ground. Within minutes, green shoots began to emerge, growing at an accelerated rate. Nearby, Xanth tended to a group of injured colonists. Her antennae pulsed with energy as she passed her hands over their wounds. Broken bones knit together, infections vanished, and even psychological trauma began to fade under her healing touch. As word of their deeds spread, Andrew and Xanth became living symbols of hope and unity. Their story inspired millions across both civilizations, breaking down centuries of mistrust and xenophobia. Mixed couples became more common, following in the footsteps of the two heroes who had transcended the boundaries of their species. Months after their transformation, Andrew and Xanth stood on the observation deck of the deep space outpost where their journey had begun. The stars stretched out before them, a canvas of infinite possibilities. Their bodies shimmered with otherworldly energy, a physical manifestation of the change they had brought to the galaxy. Andrew turned to Xanth, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the starlight. "We've come so far," he said, his voice carrying an echo of their shared power. "But I can't help feeling our journey is just beginning." Xanth smiled, her features a harmonious blend of human and Pandronian characteristics. "The shadows may be defeated, but there are other species out there who might have been affected by their influence. We could help them, show them a path to unity." Andrew nodded, feeling the rightness of her words through their bond. An expedition of healing and diplomacy. Who better to bridge the gaps between cultures than beings who embody the union of two species? As they stood there contemplating their next adventure, a comm channel opened. Ambassador Chen's voice came through, tinged with excitement. "Andrew, Xanth, we're ready to sign the formal Human-Pandronian Alliance Treaty. Your presence is requested on Earth for the ceremony." Andrew and Xanth shared a look of understanding. This was their legacy, a galaxy forever changed by their sacrifice and love. As they prepared to depart for Earth, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their bond a testament to the limitless potential of unity in the cosmos.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.